You're listening to the Survivor Sweat Podcast with Mike Buckmiller and Russell Rosenblum. If you're looking for strategy articles and just about everything Survivor, head to survivorsweat.com. Now, let's get to it.
All right, welcome to the Survivor Sweat Pod in the Simply Vegas studio, heading into week 12.
Week 12.
Well, we broke the century mark.
We did.
We are officially sub 100 remaining in the contest.
And when you say we, that includes us.
That includes us.
If it didn't, we could still say we, but it'd be the we that's all of you, that's not us.
Absolutely incredible. 99 left. My name is Mike Buckmiller. This is Russell Rosenblum. We were the 2022 Circa Survivor champion under the Jed entry name. Jed is dead, but we are alive and well with one entry remaining in this contest.
Yep.
Absolutely
Chip in a chair.
Incredible. Well, let's recap week 11 here. A grand total of 6 hit the skids. 99 out of the original 14,266 entries remain, meaning 99.3% of the pool has been eliminated through week 11. Last year, after 11 weeks, there were 4% remaining, obviously a smaller overall number, but 0.7% still have a dream of winning the take-all price.
I take the over. More people have a dream. Some people are trying to scrape up the cash, buy an entry in Survivor Sweat.
This is true. This is true.
It's getting more expensive.
Winner
I told you should buy earlier.
Winner take all. $14,266 to possibly one person.
Possibly.
Maybe the one person that has all 6.
Could be 99 people, but I doubt it.
Yeah, no, Sean Perry is not in this, so maybe we can, Sean.
True.
Who knows?
99 football degens on the wall. 99 football degens.
How about the 11 Packer entries that sweated the block kick?
And then I hear they don't have to sweat it, but I hear there's some complaints to the league now.
I did see that.
Yep.
I wonder if they're just going to run them back out there and have them re-kick.
They should. Sort of like, didn't baseball do that once? Like George Brett, Pine Tar or something?
Oh, yeah, that's amazing.
They should bring them back out.
Can you imagine if they came back and said, nope, yeah, it was a foul. We reviewed it. And
we're moving you 15 closer, kick again.
Yeah. Line it up, baby.
Giants won't even care. Send them anywhere to kick.
I wonder how those 11...
Bears. Yeah, they won't care.
It's always these stories, but...
that you end up winning. You got to win some weird,
can you imagine if
crazy
one
game.
of these entries find the finish line?
Like last year's misclick or you know stuff like that. It's those are the guys that usually
Incredible.
find
What a story. It all adds to the greatest football contest in the world.
We were rooting for the kick to be good. And in fairness, the guy's house we were watching the game at was rooting for it more than he knows because I almost threw something at the screen. I was pretty pissed.
You've been known to throw a few things.
I have. Once, maybe twice.
All right, so what was your biggest takeaway from the Week 11 selections?
This one's easy. Usually they're not, and I go, oh, God, I know you're going to ask this, and I'm not ready. And this time I said, oh, I already know what I'm going to say. I don't understand what motivated 2 people to take the Browns. I just don't. I mean, I feel like, and I say this all the time. Remember we talked a couple years ago. We talked last year in the pod. We talked a couple years ago about the guy, whether it was right or wrong, to take 6 Buffalo entries a couple of weeks before Thanksgiving because he knew Buffalo would be the chalk.
Yeah.
And he lost. And I had said at the time when everybody goes, he's crazy, I go, you know, I wouldn't have done it, but I can see some validity to the pick. I'm always both sidesing everything. It's just how I'm wired, right? This one, you know, I struggle. I mean, I didn't go back and look at their specific availability. It's possible that they had no availability here that wouldn't totally burn their Christmas or Thanksgiving or something. But it's just, this is like, we say stay away from the chalk, but this is kind of extreme, right? I mean, maybe they just threw a dart and picked a team. I got to tell you, the worst part about this, if I'm them, I guess, well, it's that maybe they don't realize the Browns are bad. But no, the worst part is that if you're going to make a pick that crazy, it still won't make sense. But you can probably calculate some bizarre EV if you're literally the only person on the pick. Like literally everybody else loses and you win the entire pool because you know who the hell's going to take Cleveland.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm not saying this because they lost. I mean, that's not at all. It's whether they won or lost wouldn't matter. Once a single second person takes it, it totally butchers it for that one guy. But if one guy took it, I could think, I still wouldn't like it. I could like the pick. I could think, Well, maybe he just wants to be the only person on an island with a team. He wants to win the whole thing. Maybe his remaining picks aren't very good, and he just wants to win the whole thing. Now, I don't know how you find two of those people.
Right. Yeah.
It's just very strange. It's just a very strange
separate
spot
entries. Early in the week, the game was labeled Pros versus Joes. A lot of the sharps were supposedly on the Browns. Love the Browns.
Do they know Joe Flacco's not there anymore? Those Joes, those Pros.
I mean, that said, the line opened at I think -1. So Browns were getting a point, and then it got bet down to even. I mean, still, what's the big advantage there? A single point.
Even if you say Joes versus Pros, the Pros win maybe 55%.
Yeah.
Right. And so here, it's not that you pick you pick, say, a 7-point favorite, and let's say they're 75% to win the game. And the books are wrong. Maybe they're 68% to win the game.
Yeah.
If they're really wrong.
Sure.
They could be wrong 71%, still wrong. I'm saying 68% would be dramatically wrong. Here you've got the book saying that they're maybe 54, I don't know what it is at 1 point, right? If the books are wrong and you're right, maybe they're 58. They're not 70. It's that's just a real stretch. I mean, I think that the worst spot we've taken is a 2.5-point favorite in 3 years of this
Yeah, it
contest.
just seemed too early in this contest not to have a better option. I get what you're saying.
And I didn't look, and I should have looked, but I just didn't understand.
Yeah.
To be blunt, and if you guys are out there, although if I were you and I was out there, I probably would stop watching anything Survivor related and have jumped off a building. But if you're out there and you're listening, I am curious as to what the rationale was. So feel free to DM us or pop over on YouTube or something.
Yeah,
Do you guys think that when you see things like this,
Jumpers?
do you think that people, this Browns situation, do you think that people just do that just so when they get through, they look like a genius and they just have a crazy story?
I think on week 1 they do.
Yeah.
I think on week 10, 11, 12 they don't. It's just like we don't see any more no picks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just.
This is
very
obviously,
strange.
they put some thought into this pick. This is week.
Well, we assume that.
Week 11. I mean, you're not just clicking a button. I know you mentioned something like maybe it was a misclick, but you're going to have two misclicks?
And that's the other thing. If it's a misclick, usually the misclick is you took the wrong side of the game you wanted. Mm-hmm. Who wants the other side of that game?
Correct.
I mean, I guess now I'd prefer the other side of the game they won.
Sure.
But no, at the time, who wants the other side of the game? I did, and you're right, I didn't pay close enough attention. Maybe there's a game immediately, like on the Circa list when you're selecting, for those that haven't been on the app. Mm-hmm. Maybe there was a game immediately above or immediately below it, and they hit it and confirmed. I mean, mistakes have been made. I've made mistakes on that app too, but it's just a very strange one. I don't know.
Interesting. Yeah, well, I mean, 32% land on the Lions. We were on the Lions.
Boo.
Didn't think they'd be that high in ownership. I mean, there was a chance. Just didn't feel like it. Didn't feel like people were going to tip their hand there. But again, we've discussed there are sharps here, but it looks like most people are going to be on Kansas City now for Thanksgiving.
Look, I'm willing to admit it. We're willing to admit it. And we admitted it before the game, where as soon as we saw the projections come out, the actual picks come out, we were wrong, right? So we went into this saying, okay, look, we're hoping when we're going to land on Detroit, we could have landed on Miami. That would have actually given us a slightly easier path through through the rest of the season. We decided, we thought Detroit's more likely to win. Clearly, I don't think there was really no dispute there. But it looked like most of the people would end up in Miami. I think in the Twitter handle, I don't know what you said, 40, maybe 50%. And clearly, and as I said to Mike as we were deciding on the pick, I go, okay, we're going to have an analysis now so we don't sit there later and pretend, I don't want to drink the Kool-Aid. A very simple metric is if more people are on Detroit than Miami, we were wrong.
Correct.
Right? That sort of, and the bigger that number is, the more wrong we are. And so, I was definitely a little bit surprised and definitely disappointed. It changes the dynamic now because now I suspect, and you'll circle to next week later, but now Miami's probably going to be pretty heavily used this week instead.
Sure. You figure, 40% take Miami, maybe higher, then, you have an opportunity to take them, obviously, this week, as you discussed. But only 29% landed on them. So,
Right. There's still plenty left. And look, as our friend David Baker, who's been on the pod out here before, said, you got to keep in mind, you're right, it's bad, and you're on the wrong side. Like there was no dispute there. But when you have the NFL wise guys that take 6 on the Lions, when you only have 100 entries, if they took 6 on Miami, I still think we're a little wrong, but suddenly that's a 12% shift. I mean, it's 6 going the other way, 6 less coming from this
Skews
side.
the whole thing. Yeah.
Right. So then you get Miami going up to like, roughly 36-ish, and Detroit coming down to like 27-ish, right?
Yeah.
So,
Thanks, NFL wise guys.
it's a big difference. But even if you told me Miami was 36 and Detroit was 27, I'd still say we were wrong, to be clear. Yeah. I wanted Miami to be a bigger, at least a 10-point gap between them.
Yeah. As it turned out, game was not close. We got through. And you just hope that when you land on Detroit, you hope that a couple other teams, the Packers,
Well, we had a couple of
Miami,
our partners freak out early on. I hadn't even arrived yet to watch the game, and I already got a text, 59-yard field goal. This is what we're going to have to deal with. So we walk in, and the Detroit's losing 3-0, which did not last long.
No, it did not last long. The game was never a sweat. The other games were a sweat, and nobody really went down. I mean,
Not
it's
really.
tough,
Not really. There were a few spots. I mean, Miami, like we said, you look at the final score. I'm trying to debate if the game was closer than the final score or not. There were moments where the Raiders looked like maybe they'd have some slim, teeny shot of coming back, and then that just vanished quickly.
Yeah. You hope, the Titans upset, Vikings. Again, the field goal with the Bears. Yep. You hope a couple of those get chopped down, but, everybody got through other than...
Almost.
Well, almost everybody. 49ers.
Yep.
Man, 49ers, man. They just cannot close out games.
I know.
Just fourth quarter woes everywhere.
You were funny. We were, discussing our millions entry Saturday morning. Mm-hmm. And you were, we were gaming out a bunch of them. And as you were saying, the 49ers have had issues with defensive coordinator from the Seahawks, mm-hmm. the current defensive coordinator at the Seahawks, right? And as you're telling me this,
who was the defensive coordinator
prior.
for the Ravens. Yep.
And as you're telling me this, you're actually indirectly convincing me, and I switched one of my entries up to take Seattle in millions. And we're discussing them, so you know what I'm taking. It's not this. And yet I look at your millions entry, which you can still change because I'm the one that's putting it in. I'm our proxy. And you're sticking with San Francisco, even just telling me how they're going to struggle. It was just bizarre.
Yeah. Unreal. All right. So, obviously, 99 through. How did last year's Circa Survivor champion fare out, Nick?
They did good. We're going to start with Jags.
They did not take the Browns?
They did not. None of them took the Browns.
Hard to believe.
As a little spoiler. Jags, last year's champion, he took 2 Dolphins.
Okay.
Because Las Vegas is bad.
That's what I hear. I hear they're bad.
Yes.
In fairness, I've seen them be bad, up close and personal.
How about Alex Brown?
Alex Brown, you guys is co-champion from 2022. Same thing. Dolphins against the bad Raiders. So, nice job, Alex.
I know Russ mentioned earlier, but the NFL wise guys who have 6 picks, they took the
Detroit Lions.
Yeah.
All 6, which is wild. And 3 of NFL wise guys entries have a twin, as you guys were talking about last week.
Yeah, same entry.
Yeah.
And then
my Twitter buddy Derbify, your previous Circa Millions winner, he was 1 lion with you guys.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I was chatting with him a little bit on Twitter. It'd be interesting to see who the first person or the first entry ends up winning Survivor and also Circa Millions.
It will be.
That would be quite the feat for sure. Yep. A little bit of miscellaneous data here. 83 have 1 entry left individually. 5 have 2. And as we mentioned before, 1 has 6 entries. So we don't know who's partner, who's paired up, who's what, but those are the individual.
Those are the obvious ones.
The obvious ones, yep,
right.
For sure.
There could be others.
Yep.
Which is fine. It's not, we've said this before, it's not violating the rules. Circa's been pretty clear about that. You can partner with whoever you choose to. That's between you and them. So a number of people do that. And as I've said before, I encourage it. 1, because it just gives you more paths, gives you a better chance to get there. But most importantly, look, the chances of winning this contest, even now, are really, really low. Yeah. Roughly 100 people, so you have a 1% chance, roughly. If everybody, it's like drivers, 80% of people believe they're above average drivers, right? So you have a 1% chance to win on paper. If you think you're way, way, way better than the field, maybe you have a 3% chance. You don't have a 30% chance, right? So, at least if you get in this with friends, you get to go out and really sweat it and enjoy it. It is a lot more fun.
Yep. Well, congratulations to everybody who's through. 99, quite the feat. But again, We got a ways to go. And speaking of a ways to go, we'll take a quick break, and we're going to discuss next
do
week's
it.
path.
Missing out on the biggest sports contest of the year just because you're not in Las Vegas? Now there's a solution with Survivor Sweat. Play from anywhere in the Circa Millions, Circa Survivor, or any of the biggest sports contests with America's first secondary marketplace to buy and sell contest entries. Buy an entry in the marketplace and then submit your picks each week into the contest using our preferred proxy partners. Make a deep run in a winner-take-all contest? Sell any piece of your Survivor entry in the Survivor Sweat secondary marketplace. Set your price, stake, and pick control status, and buyers can join the action from anywhere. Buyers can even resell their stake if the entry increases in value. Think of it as an eBay for sports contests. Now's your chance to win over $16 million. To learn more, visit survivorsweat.com and get started today.
All right, we're rolling.
Let her rip.
All right, we're back. Look ahead to week 12. Wow, we got some interesting games here. Where do you think people land?
The Browns. I mean, look at it this way. You would think that there were two people that didn't have them available, but everyone left still has them available. Those two are gone. So they're there. And they got a great division matchup against the Steelers. Okay, I've wasted enough of your time.
Yep.
Looking on to this week, what do we got here? So I'm going to look at this differently. So, in non-Circa pools, we always start there. Kansas City looks like they would be very popular this week in general with some significant popularity. I usually start with the spreads. I usually start with popularity. Houston looks like they'll be fairly popular. Miami, Washington, you're really looking at the usual suspects there, right?
Yeah.
And then you're looking at, again, same basic idea. You got Kansas City that's give or take 11-point favorite, Washington at 10, Houston at 8.5, Detroit, for the people that didn't already burn them, 7.5, Miami 7. There are a lot of games that are, I think in Survivor, sometimes you got to look at games that are 2, 2.5, 3 points. And those are always they make you cringe, but you got to do it. And when you're looking at games that are 6, 7, and 8 points, those are great spots. When you have them, they're great spots. When you look at games that are 10 plus, you're always thinking, okay, I'll take it, but I want to make sure the whole world is on them too.
Sure.
Am I taking this with everybody else? So that I think is really kind of a breakdown. So this week, you've probably got 6, 7 games that are 6 points. If you count Denver and the Raiders at about 5 points, it's sort of in that bucket. Mm-hmm. You got a lot of games to choose from this week as opposed to a lot of other weeks.
Yeah, if you didn't burn Detroit last week and you feel comfortable with Christmas, or you don't think it's going to get there, maybe you pivot and take the Chiefs here. Only 80% can take the Chiefs. And,
Did you say only 80% can take the Chiefs?
Only 80%
That's
can
what I
take
thought
the
you
Chiefs.
said.
Yep. And then maybe you just, you plan on playing the Lions on Thanksgiving, as we know only 35, 36 people can take them there. Yep. So, maybe you're zigging when people are zagging. So,
Maybe. And, you also, and I don't advise this, but I mean, it's hard to win this pool. You can sort of make some indirect bet that you don't think this thing makes it to Christmas. You can make the indirect bet you don't think it makes it past Christmas.
Sure.
You're looking at Christmas, and even your favorites are like, what's the biggest favorite right now? Like 53% or something? It's a joke.
The biggest favorite is 53%. Two games are at 53%. The Bears over the Seahawks and the Chiefs over the Steelers.
I mean, I guess I would take the Bears over like the Browns or the Panthers, I guess. But I mean, how much can you really like that Bears-Seahawks game? How much can you like the Bears insert?
Yeah, no, and to that
that
point, there's many places to land this week. You mentioned the Commanders, 10-point favorites, 82% win rate. It looks like 14% are going to take them. You got 58% of the pool can take them. I think they climb. I think they get closer to 20% maybe there.
They do, because when I look at this in a vacuum, again, non-Circa would, initial look would, non-Circa would be something like 25% on KC. A lot of those will fall off of KC because it's special weeks.
Yep.
Then you'd have like 14 on Washington, 18 on Houston, 15 on Miami-ish. So let's say you take, 20% away from Kansas City and apply it to those three. You're looking at like, 20% Washington, 25% Houston. Although in our pool, there's only 18% of our pool has Houston. But I'm not sure. I didn't look compared to how many got knocked out. So how many
I
are
can
left?
guarantee that 18% will not be on them.
Yeah, it's safe. What percentage still have Houston?
14.
Yeah, there you go. So, and you 14% have Houston, and you still got them in a special week. So I don't think you have 14% on Houston.
No.
I don't know what you're going to have. It'll be less than 14, maybe 10.
And then the individuals or the entries that didn't take the Dolphins last week, they sit there. You know, the Dolphins 74.
And what are you waiting for?
74% win rate, 66% can take them. I mean, I think it's going to be Dolphins and Commanders. You'll see at the top. You'll get some. We'll get tricky with the Chiefs. A few on the Texans. I mean, the Bucks -5.5 at the Giants. I mean, that's a good spot there.
There are a number of good spots this week. We haven't had a week like this since like week 2 or 3. I mean, it's where you just have a lot of very legitimate spots.
And then
you could
got the Broncos. Who are the Broncos got this week?
The Raiders.
So you got the Broncos -5, 69% win rate. Shows that maybe 6% ownership.
The Raiders have only lost 1 game since their bye. They're turning it around.
And only 36% could take them, so that might be a good spot to land. So, there's several different spots.
And Bo Nix has been looking pretty good.
Yep. And don't forget about the Vikings. Still 50% of the pool can take them. -3.5 at the Bears, 62% win rate.
Now, I'm going to ask you a similar comment in a different way. So if you remember week 1 of the season, or maybe this comment happened, well, we had this comment at week 1 and then between week 1 and week 2, which was that in your experience having coached, right, that teams usually see the biggest improvement between week 1 and week 2, going into week 2, right? Like week 1, they do have the whole preseason when they have new coaching and whatever.
Correct.
But usually it's hard. They got to see everything on the field, in full-time, full motion. And then week 2, they show the biggest improvements. They might show some from 2 to 3, but mostly from week 1 to 2, as we said, right? Well, we know the Raiders have a new offensive coordinator, right? And they've also got a new, what is he called, the offensive consultant? I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
Norv
Turner. They would show him up there in the booth. And I didn't think he liked the decision to kick the field goal. He went you got to be kidding me.
Maybe he doesn't have a mic. But do you think that that same thing would apply mid-season to a situation like that? Do you think they'll show a bigger improvement between the first and second game?
Yeah, I think it's possible. I mean, At the end of the day...
We know anything's possible.
At the end of the day, like, you have to have the horses to win the race. I just don't think the Raiders have the horses.
Is that like a Broncos pun? Because...
Yeah, right. Yep, for
the
sure.
The Broncos have the horses, the Raiders don't.
Yeah. For sure. And another thing, I thought you were actually going to go to a different spot. Do you remember week 1 when we discussed maybe taking a Viking at the Giants? Because it was like a 1-point game. Now look, fast forward 11 weeks, 12 weeks now.
Yeah, forgot about
the
that
difference between the Vikings and the Giants. And I remember there were several that took the Vikings and people were like, whoa.
Right.
I mean, there was quite a few entries on them in a 1-point game. And I think they were either 1-point favorites or dogs. It was really close. And now fast forward, and it's like, wow.
We talked about taking a pick on each side. We decided not to do it. Yeah. But, I mean, you can get splashy early on when you've got a lot of picks. Sure. If you came in this thing with one, this is the other reason it's better to have multiple picks and partners and stuff. If you come in this thing with 1 pick, you can definitely win it. It's been done. But you don't get to try anything. I mean, I can't imagine you certainly can't take both sides of one game with 1 pick, but you're certainly not looking to take a team that's a 1-point favorite in week 1.
No. So yeah, definitely a lot of spots to land. It'll be interesting to see. Just right here, gaming it out. I'm thinking
I bet you we land on one of them.
It's the Dolphins or the Commanders, or they're the top. And we don't know what our pick
Dolphins,
is.
I would bet, and since we've been wrong multiple weeks in a row, it should be a good bet. No, we haven't been that wrong.
We have.
I think the Dolphins are the number one, the most popular pick.
I know off camera here, people ask you a lot.
They do.
Where you think we're going to land?
They do.
They ask me. My brother-in-law texted me in the middle of the night saying, hey, what's your thoughts on where we're going to go? And honestly, I do not talk to Russ at all about Survivor after Sunday. We come on this pod and organically start discussing the outline and working through it. And then after we leave the pod, maybe a day, 2 days, we might have a conversation. We start narrowing it down on Friday, kind of get comfortable with a couple spots.
I'd say 35% of the time we have some decision on Friday that on Saturdays actually changed. We change our mind on Saturday, even though on Friday we were pretty sure.
Yep.
Most of the time it's really not decided until this pick has to go in, because one, you really want to dig in, And 2, you get shifts in some of these popularity numbers you see. 3, the most obvious, you never know when you're going to see some injuries come out, some random left.
Yeah.
Like right now, if Tua was concussed, presumably we'd know it.
Yeah.
But if you had some left tackle with an ankle tweak, you may or may not.
Sure, absolutely. And the data gets sharper as the week goes, and then you get a little bit more comfortable with your pick, and you leave no stone unturned, and you kind of work through it, and then you have to be comfortable pushing that button on Saturday and living with it.
You don't have to be comfortable. You just have to push the button. There's plenty of times I'm not comfortable. There are plenty of times I push the button.
But
we're confident I push the button.
We usually have conviction.
And literally right after I click confirm, I'm like, yeah, maybe we should reconsider.
All right, let's look ahead to Thanksgiving, right around the corner, week 13A. For those of you in the poll, just in case you don't know by now, you actually have to take a team on Thanksgiving.
Wait, no pick's not an option on Thanksgiving? You actually, the no pick?
And it has to be the Friday games involved.
Yes, they do count.
The Chiefs and Raiders. So it's that Black Friday game, if you will. So 3 games on Thanksgiving, Black Friday game. And so, Nick, give us a peek of what our remaining contestants will have to sort through.
Yeah, and real quick on the Survivor Sweat website, if you go to the research tool, I split up 13A and 13B just so everybody can keep it straight in their head. But we're going to talk about the franchise that we always talk about first when we do the look-aheads, which is the Kansas City Chiefs, because they have an 85% win rate over the bad Raiders, and 79.8% of the pool could take them. So that'll probably be pretty popular, don't you guys think?
I think that's going to be...
Well, I mean, it depends. Do you still have, like, the Giants or Cowboys available?
Oh, jeez.
boy.
Maybe just take... Will they let you just put the Browns in anyway? They're not playing, but can you just put the Browns in?
13B.
And then for the next one, we got the Packers, 68% win rate over the Dolphins, and 61% of the pool could take that guy.
If something happens to Tua this week, then everyone's going to just dump on them. They're going to all
that'll shoot up.
Yeah,
for sure.
But without that, I think the Packers legit favorite, but personally, I think 68% is a little steep in that game. Miami's obviously not as bad as they look. I mean, they haven't had their offense going for most of the year.
Sure.
Next up, we got the Detroit Lions, 83% win rate over the Chicago Bears, and 35% of the pool can take the Lions. I have a question for you guys about this matchup, because we always talk about the divisional. And this morning when I was hanging out with my dad, he asked me about this game specifically. With where the Bears are and how good the Lions are this year for the first time in my lifetime, do you guys think that, the Bears might have 2 in the chamber versus the Lions, as opposed to other teams who maybe only have like 1 in the chamber? Does that make sense? Like the divisional stuff we've talked about off air?
Mike might say yes. I'm going to say no. I mean, I'm going to say the one thing they have, if you want to say going for them, anytime you create variance, like things that you're not used to, things that aren't part of the ritual, the routine, it's always technically better for the worst team, right? Like for example, let's say instead of playing a 60-minute game, they decided, okay, this game is just 5 minutes, let's go, right? Bears have a better chance of winning. They start with the ball, maybe they get a field goal, the Lions don't score in 1 possession, the Bears win, right? So the closer you get to a normalized game, the more likely the Lions are to win. So Thanksgiving's obviously a short week. So anytime you have a short week, I'm not saying it definitively benefits the underdog, meaning they're going to win. They're more likely to be competitive just because there's variance, like bad weather, like a storm comes in play, like anything. Even though you go one team's better at rushing, it still just builds things that are going to go wrong, that are going to go weird, more fumbles, stuff like that. So if Detroit comes in because they have a short week, you're going to have a little bit of recency bias here if you consider a year recently, where last year Detroit was pretty sizable favorite over Green Bay. Not this big, but still pretty sizable over Green Bay on Thanksgiving. And Detroit lost. And for those of you that are new to football, Detroit is always playing at home on Thanksgiving. So you don't have to go back and look and see where they play. Detroit and Dallas are always home. So, they're home all the time, and yet, they lost. But I still think you look at that game last year, and it's people always assume because a team won, they're winning 100% of the time. Mm-hmm. Detroit probably wins that game, I don't know, 70, 75% of the time. That just wasn't more than 25.
Sure.
So people are looking over, maybe Detroit's not good on Thanksgiving, and they'll go pull 20 years of Lions Thanksgiving games when the team was garbage. Yeah. Compared to today. So to me, that's really, really tough. If we still had Detroit available, See, I'm finally going to tell you who I would take, even though I can't take them. If we had Detroit available, I would be taking Detroit. Yeah. I actually like Detroit in this spot in like week 2 or 3. Week 1, I was like, okay, we're holding Dallas. Then I realized Dallas wasn't very good.
Yeah,
and
we'll
very quickly, we decided we were holding Detroit. So I think Detroit's in a great spot in this game.
Yeah, they are. There's also one more piece of information is that I went back for the last 2 years. There is some data that teams that after they play Detroit, they're pretty banged up the next week. They're built for physicality, offense and defensive line, and they bring it and they wear you down. That said, I also looked at how Detroit played after in a short week, and they don't play their best football, and it's just the wear and tear. Now, do I think Chicago is going to be in on this game? No. I think Detroit beats them up. Absolutely. That said, there is some data to support that.
There is. But, I mean, in fairness, who really plays great on a short week? Mm-hmm. You're right about Detroit. I'm not saying you're wrong, but like, you're not going to show me anybody that looks, they do much better in a short week than a long week.
Correct.
That's not a thing.
Correct. Yep.
And I've said this for a while, and I don't think it'd be that hard for the NFL to do. I mean, it would involve caring about things like player safety, which is a whole challenge for them apparently. But I think everybody that plays on a Thursday, they should only be after a bye week.
Yeah.
And so now they're on a long week, and then I think it's great. But I think on a true short week, it's ridiculous. It might cause them an issue. It means you couldn't have a week 1. Well, you could have a week 1 Thursday game because everybody's had an off season. The week 2 Thursday game would only work if you gave people bye weeks in week 1, which the NFL has done. They did it, I think it was in Miami, a couple teams a few years back when there were big storms, hurricanes. Yeah. So they decided to move their bye week to week 1, shift it to week 2. But I think that if I were the players union, that's something that, I mean, it's not an easy ask, but it's easier than a lot of the other things they ask for.
Well, I think there's one more game that you can take on that day.
No, there really isn't.
What do we got, Nick?
The Browns.
Yeah, but pretty close. The Dallas Cowboys.
The Texas Browns versus the New York Browns.
Yeah, and the Cowboys only have a 55% win rate against the Giants.
Tommy Cutlass.
Yeah, and 93% can take the Cowboys. So, I mean, if you want to fire on the Cowboys, be my guess. But, geez.
They should put Trey Lance in so we can see Danny DeVito versus Trey Lance. That'd be fun.
Man.
Danny DeVito.
Yeah.
I think
DeVito.
I think everybody should plan to eat their turkey during that game.
See, this is the perfect.
Turn the TV off.
I was going to say the perfect opportunity to say to your spouse, in the very likely event your spouse isn't as big a degen as you, it's okay, honey. This year I'm not going to watch. We're going to eat and not watch the game.
Oh, that's a good move.
Yeah, let's do it at 2:00. You know what? I'm really going to focus, on family, and we're going to eat, and I'm going to just turn the TV off and be in the moment there.
Right. And then of course I'm going to look up at halftime. She's going to go, "What are you doing?" I go, "I forgot I had fantasy players in this game." You have fantasy players on the Giants?
Yeah. Another reason to turn the TV off.
Very much so. Yeah. Very much so. The Giants. The Cowboys put up quite a performance this last Monday night.
Unreal. All right, we will move on. Okay, most common entries: Seattle, Houston, Jets, Niners, Bears, Eagles, Rams, Broncos, Bengals, Chargers.
Sounds
Lions.
like he's just rattling off NFL teams.
Nick, there's a few teams here that are sub 50% that are running out of entries, or entries they can't take them.
Yeah.
So what do they got?
Yeah, we got the Jets 8%, Chargers 14%, Houston 14%. You guys were talking about that earlier today. Eagles 21%, Niners 22%, Seattle 33%, Lions 35%, Broncos 36%, Rams 48%, and Vikings 49.5%.
Yep.
So
starting to run out of teams to take there, Russ. We will see.
I think the people that have already burned the Jets that are still alive are okay with that. They're not looking, oh gosh, I don't have the Jets anymore.
Yeah, no. And for those of you that don't have entries to take, head on over to Survivor Sweat.
If only there was a place to buy one.
Nick, how did the market do last week?
So I've gotten some questions about this. You can look at the graphic on Twitter. I normally post it Saturday morning or Saturday early afternoon, normally before when you guys post. The question I have gotten about this though is that it's for the previous week. So what I want to talk about right now is week 10. During week 10, there was 40 total listings, 33 total offers, 11 total sales. One swap, and the lowest percentage that we sold was 1%, and the highest we sold was 10%. And then if you're following along with the graphic, you can just find it on Twitter, like I said. Below that, we have average equity value sales, and it was 108K.
Hey, I have an idea. If you know the guy that does, production for this pod, when he goes back and does that, he can put the graphic actually on the screen.
Yeah.
I could do that.
Oh, it's you. Who knew?
Russ, you're getting a raise for that.
Wow. Are you going to double my pay?
Yeah.
Oh,
Maybe
boy.
even triple it.
Yeah.
That should be a hint, everyone out there.
Well, before jumping on the pod, I went over to the marketplace myself. 14 entries ranging between $1,200 for 1%, all the way up to $150K for 90%. The current intrinsic value of an entry is $144,000, and the last sale was $2,350, so $2,350 for 2%. Last week, the NFL Wise Guys, they popped 6 entries on there. Yep. Not sure what they got for that, but I do know that they did sell off a percentage of it.
Excellent.
Yep. And also, I'd be remiss if I didn't say the current leader in the Circa Millions, not Russ, the current leader in the Circa Millions with 40 points is selling a piece of his entry.
That's right. Not Survivor. That's Millions.
Not Survivor. And first place for the Circa Millions is $1 million.
That'd have been hard to guess given the title of the contest.
Unlike Circa Survivor, the contest pays several places, 2 through 100, along with the $1 million first entry prize. And also has quarterly prizes. So there's 2 weeks left in this quarter, which is the third quarter, and the last quarter is 5 weeks. And that entry name is, Nick, what's that entry's name?
Come on. You can get there.
I can get there. Boz Ross.
Boz Ross.
I like that username.
Yeah, BAWSROSSE. Congratulations for picking 5 each week and getting 40 points.
It's so hard.
My friend over here has been on fire, and he's up to 33.5 points in the contest, which I think is amazing.
I would, except I see all the people that are ahead of me, that the 8,000 people that have somehow made more. Amazing.
So we got 2 entries there ourselves. We got one with 34.5 points and Russ's entry at 33.5. So fun contest to follow along. And, it's one of those, if you buy into that entry, you get to sweat 5 picks each week.
Right.
And obviously that individual up to this point has a pretty firm grasp on what he's doing. And you got many chances to cash.
And if you buy in, you can actually tell him who you want to pick, and he can just ignore you.
I would not.
But
yeah, I definitely wouldn't want to tell him what to pick.
No, I wouldn't either.
No,
the guy's running that good. What do I want to tell him what to do?
Well, there was a question this week. First off, thanks to the guys over at Follow the Money on Vissen. Mm-hmm. I had the honor to go on there with Paul Howard and Mitch Moss, along with James Sullivan, and I got to relive our 2022 run. And James discussed the marketplace and how it operates. And
I think they started by congratulating James on his win in 22, and you're like, actually, that was me. He was like, that was him.
Yeah, James is like this.
Yeah, that's not me.
Hey, as long as I got the big check.
Exactly. You can take the big one. I'll take the one that goes in the bank.
There you have it. There was a question following that. Nick, can you divulge what that question was?
Of course. The methodologist, I like that username. He asks, how is a person who runs a proxy allowed to play in Survivor? And fun fact, I was typing out on the Survivor Sweat Twitter to answer this guy, and you beat me to it by a couple seconds, Mike.
Oh, I jumped on immediately. I said, great question, for sure. For the record, I only host the Survivor Sweat pod. I do not have anything to do with the marketplace.
Other than setting the prices.
I do not set the prices. I am far removed from that. I am here to discuss the discuss the contest, and I am a contestant. I am in it to win it with my partner and the group, everybody that's involved.
We don't see any of the proxy stuff.
Nothing to do with it.
Matter of fact, I don't even know which entries are proxied by them. I have no idea.
No clue. I am here to discuss the pod, discuss the contest, and support the community. That's what I'm here for.
So, I mean, the other answer to this is yes, in our opinion, not a legal opinion, just personal opinion, it would be a little unusual and questionable anybody had an entry in Survivor and was proxying other people's picks.
Sure.
Like literally, like I have an entry and I'm the guy that sees all the picks. Now you can Chinese wallet if you have people entering picks, you don't see them. But yeah, that would be, I wouldn't be, to be honest, I wouldn't be comfortable with that. Somebody proxying the pick that, like I wouldn't ask 20 people to send me their picks. And like we've had people reach out to us and ask if they could pay us to work with them, you know, to help them with their picks and basically give us a free piece, I assume. But the problem with that is while we still have an entry, now I'm going to help guide you to a pick and I'm going to tell you to pick and I'm going to know who you're going to pick before I put my pick in. Yeah. That's almost the same thing. And so we avoid those. Now, if we weren't in anymore, we'd entertain conversations like that. But if we're actually still in, it's conflict.
How many entries does Jeff Benson have? Do you think he maxes out?
Well, I think he maxes out. I'm sure he's maxed out. He has the same number of entries as his boss,
tell you
Derek.
What, when you listen to Derek Stevens discuss the contest,
oh, it's great.
Do you know how bad he wants to be in it?
Oh God, yes.
He maps the whole thing out. He has his whole thing out, and he's looking at the picks and the whole thing, and he can't play.
And he can't play. And he would play somewhere else. I think he had a post up. Was it near the end of the baseball season? I think he had some.
I think he had some futures.
He had some futures on the Lions, on the Tigers, and he said he had it at Caesars or BetMGM. I can't remember. And he was very nice. He was accommodating. He said, "I think they've done a good job, etc." He wasn't criticizing the competition. And for those that asked the obviously, question of, wait, why are you betting there? Why aren't you betting your own book? He's like, look, I am allowed to bet sports. I am not allowed to bet at my own book.
No.
Now, in fairness, every time someone else makes a bet, he is indirectly betting at his own book, right? Like he can move a line.
Got the other side.
Right. He can move a line that de facto, causes you to take bets on the other side, which gives you action. But there is still a difference between owning a sports book and seeing action and actually you placing a bet on something you like. It's not the same. It's not the money. It's just a different element of the juice that you made a pick.
Yep.
It's not. So in other words, it's not just for you guys out there, for you degens. It's even the guys that own the books. It's different. Like I go, most guys I know that have run books also actually enjoy betting. It's not just the math of owning the book.
Yeah. All right. Well, that wraps it up for the look ahead to Week 12.
The Browns.
It'll be interesting where people land. They're not going to land on the Browns. I sure hope not.
I mean, there's always, if you're really thinking about the Browns, don't forget no pick is an option.
Yep.
It's always out there for you. And when you do the no pick, you get a call out. I guess in fairness, you get a call out when you take the Browns too. So there is that.
Well, thanks, Nick, for adding the data. And
100%.
We will discuss. And at 4 o'clock on Saturday, we will post where we land, not the Browns. And
in fairness, if you did want the Browns, this is their second best spot remaining for the year. They technically are 42% against Miami in Week 17. Otherwise, I'm not going to read you the teams. Today, they're 35. After this, they're 28, 28, 30, 28, and then 17 to end the year. So if you really did want to take the Browns, you're running out of opportunities.
I don't think those two individuals that took the Browns are going to reach out to us.
You don't think so?
No. All right, that wraps it up for this week. We will see you next week. Hope you survive.
We'll see you next week from somewhere. Enjoy your turducken. And I'm dating myself. If people don't know what that is, go look it up. It's pretty cool.
See ya.
Later. Do you know what a turducken is?
Looking for Survivor strategy articles? Did you lose your last entry on a Survivor contest and wish you could rebuy? Check out our marketplace and you may find what you need. Head over to survivorsweat.com for all things Survivor. And we'll see you next week for the next Survivor Sweat podcast.